Sad news to report this morning. Rio Rancho police are mourning the death of one of their own.
A young officer is dead after a horrible car crash yesterday. Police say Officer Anthony Haas was responding to a domestic violence call early yesterday morning, but he never made it. Instead, Officer Haas ended up crashing his police cruiser on Adalia west of Highway 528. Police say for some reason he veered very far off the road here. The crash is under investigation right now. Officer Haas was just 24 years old. He had been on the force for a little more than a year. Now officers all across the state are wearing black mourning bands across their badges.
Well, certainly it's a very somber occasion. We are in a unique position where not only are we subjected to the feelings that every human has about these types of situations, but we're also charged with investigating it as well.
Now, besides being a police officer, Mr. Haas is being remembered as a star baseball player at Rio Rancho High School. 6:02, New Mexico's death penalty will be the talk up at Santa Fe today.
Yeah, that's because the state's last two inmates on death row are asking the state's highest court to get them off of that list. News 13's Catherine Mazzone is here with the details. Good morning, Catherine.
Good morning, Matt, Crystal. New Mexico's only inmates facing possible execution want the state Supreme Court to declare their death sentences unconstitutional. That's because capital punishment was abolished after their convictions. The court is set to hear arguments from lawyers today, but the justices aren't expected to issue a ruling until months later. New Mexico repealed the death penalty in 2009 for future murders, but left it in place for Timothy Allen and Robert Fry, who were sentenced to die years before the legislature and then Governor Bill Richardson agreed to end capital punishment. Fry was sentenced to death for beating and killing a mother of 5 with a sledgehammer in 2000. Allen was sentenced to death for kidnapping and killing a teenage girl. No execution has been scheduled for either Fry or Allen, who contend their death sentences violate constitutional provisions against cruel and unusual punishment and equal protection guarantee. Now, the Attorney General's office disagrees and says their death sentences should remain in place. Crystal, back to you.
All right, thanks, Catherine. We'll be at the hearing at the state Supreme Court today, and we'll have updates this afternoon.
We're learning more about two young people found shot and killed in a car south of Santa Fe this weekend. Sheriff's deputies say the two are a 13-year-old girl and her 18-year-old boyfriend, Venancio Cisneros. Deputies are not saying much about the case right now, but they are treating it as a double homicide. They did not find a gun in the car, and they are not saying when the two were killed. A neighbor spotted the bodies Saturday morning in a neighborhood near I-25 and Highway 599. Albuquerque police are investigating a homicide in the southeast part of town. Investigators say Sunday night someone shot and killed a man at this mobile home park near J and E Streets. Police say they have arrested the man they think pulled the trigger, and they're still interviewing neighbors.
Deputies in Torrance County are investigating a deadly shooting at a strip club in Moriarty. Torrance County Sheriff's Office says it all started over a game of arm wrestling at Club 203. They say William West and his friend Cody Hara were at the club when West and Morgan Dunkel played a game of arm wrestling. After Dunkel lost, the three left the club. Minutes later, a scuffle, then gunshots.
Afterwards, they shook hands. The shooter hugged Mr. West and said that he respected him. Went to go close the door. We heard at least 6 gunshots.
Now, when the bouncer arrived, they found West dead, shot in the head. Hara was rushed to the hospital. Deputies later caught up with Dunkel, who had wrecked his car, stripped down to his underwear, and was trying to run from cops. He is now charged with an open count of murder. A woman claims actors in a haunted house went too far to scare her. It happened at the New Mexico Slaughterhouse in Old Town. The customer does not want to be identified. She says a pillow was thrown over her head. She was pinned against a wall by a leather-faced character, then told disturbing things. She also claims another man forced a fake bone into her mouth.
He was telling me horrible things like, do you like this? You like this, don't you? And I said, no, I don't actually. And he said, your boyfriend doesn't do these things to you, does he?
We do take it to the extreme in regards to our scare factor and making sure that our customers and our guests get that scare.
Now, the Slaughterhouse does allow their actors to touch customers. Their volunteers are mostly high schoolers, but the Slaughterhouse says they do have an extensive orientation.
It's 6:06 right now. An author from Rio Rancho says someone stole the plot of his book, and he's now taking the battle from the pages all the way to the courtroom. Tyzee Clark says that James Dashner's book, The Maze Runner, is based on his own book, The Maze. Clark's book, The Maze, was copyrighted with the Library of Congress back in 2002. He says the similarities between these two books can be seen page after page.
We saw the preview, and it was, as soon as they saw the first second, was wow, that's right from my book. It was very similar. So we researched it, and we found out there's a ton of things from my book that's in his book.
All right. But this weekend, James Dashner, the author of The Maze Runner, tweeted News 13's Tina Jensen saying, quote, "I give you my word, I've never heard of or read his book." The movie version of The Maze Runner just came out last month. The sequel, The Scorched Trials, is filming right now here in New Mexico.
We'll have to wait and see how that turns out.
Probably in court.
More than likely.
Yes.